sing louder than the child is screaming. Because in some ways that's what our singing is. It's a crying out to God. It's a proclamation of our faith and of our doubt. It is the song of our hearts that says, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. Seeking God's guidance and the comfort and the strength of God's life with us is our journey together. It's not something that we should try alone. It's something that we need to do with each other. And so we gather in this place today. I want to invite you to sing again this refrain, surely it is God who saves me, as it invites us to put our trust, our whole life into God's hands. Let's sing it one more time, shall we? So as we meant to plan together themes related to the Scriptures and to our journey of faith, we declared the month of October as a month to stir up faith. If you're going to stir up faith, you have to deal with doubt. And so doubt and faith together, they almost live together with each other. They are companions of each other. It is in sometimes the facing of our doubt, the facing of what we do not know for sure, that faith then finds a foothold, and it makes a claim on our lives. Faith does not begin with understanding. Faith seeks understanding. Faith comes as a gift from God. A gift. Do not judge those who do not have faith. Or if you do, you have a misunderstanding of where your faith comes from. Faith is a gift. It's a vision. It's a way of seeing life in the midst of everything that will cause you doubt. Part of the discipline of coming to worship and then going immediately to the font, to the ritual of remembering our baptism, is that it takes us back to the base element of our lives when we were infants. Some of us were baptized as infants in the Presbyterian tradition. In that sense, call to confession invites you to do what Jesus invited Nicodemus to do. Can I go back and become a child again? Yes. With God's leading and God's guidance, we recognize that our faith begins in the nothingness of us. And so we are free to ask God to remove the obstacles that are there in our lives. The obstacles to faith, money and greed, the things of regret, the things of our own angers and hostilities, anything that separates us from God and from one another. These are what we need to speak of, so that then that grace of God, which claims us from the beginning, can then completely claim us again and set us on our feet with new vision. We'll see our friends differently when we've owned the power of forgiveness. We'll see ourselves differently when we've owned the power of confession and forgiveness. We will see the world and all of life differently when we have claimed the power of our humility and the power of God's ability to forgive. Will you blend your voices with mine as we offer these words, prayer of thanksgiving, of confession, and offer them as our common confession, even while in our own hearts and minds our imaginations are able to take flights into all the places where we need God to help remove obstacles to living life fully in faith. Let us pray. You have called us to serve your word with energy, intelligence, imagination, and love. Too often our energy fades, and we waste our intelligence. We do not have time for imagination or the patience of love. Your hope is abundant. Your truth is steadfast. Yet we cannot trust the depth of your grace. Forgive us, God of mercy, and move us to know the goodness of your reign. Actually the most simple and natural response that human beings can have. Faith in God leads us to know how to have faith in each other and to have faith in ourselves. This is the picture of a human being that is free to be fully human. In the simplicity and the sign of water, a child is baptized. An adult is baptized in a moment of beginning anew. In the water, there's no magic. There's nothing alien to life. There's nothing outside of water in its purest sense. And its power to cleanse, to renew, to remind us that all of life has built into it. Renewal, beginning again. And invites us, as we recognize by God's grace, the obstacles to living our life fully, to name them. And then give them to the water. Give them to the sign of forgiveness. For in the water is the sign of God's power to renew, to cleanse, to forgive, to set free. Whatever it is, however it is that you imagine, what keeps you from fullness of relationships to your neighbors and to God, here in the simplicity of this water is pointed to the simplicity simply of our confession. And then trusting that God is able. Friends, believe the good news of the gospel. In Jesus Christ we are forgiven. Let us stand and sing of it together. Nothing that is high, nothing that is low, nothing that comes from the east or from the west or from the north or from the south that can ever separate you from the love of God in Jesus Christ. Nothing. Nothing you have done, nothing you have left undone, nothing you have thought or nothing you forgot about, nothing in all the creation. Go as far in the universe as you want to, go as deep underground as you want to. There is nothing that can separate us from the love of God that was accomplished when God came in person into the world and took on the form of human beings, lived like we live, came to understand all of what it means for us to be alive and human, and looked at us and still looks at us and says, be at peace. I've got this. I've got this. What then for us? What then for us, with all that has been done, with all that has been accomplished, with all of the powers of the universe set right, what then for us? The Apostle Paul says, except to say thank you, Lord. Thank you for your love that finally reaches me. Thank you for your grace that overcomes my self-judgment. Thank you for the love that is stronger than the condemnation of others. Thank you for the power that is in me to take one step, just even one step perhaps, in faith. Peace be with you, Jesus said. And as you step into that peace, as you claim by God's power just one moment of that peace, you will immediately be aware of your need to share, to be partners with God in passing that peace to each other. May the peace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. May it claim your hearts and your lives from beginning to end. May it move through you in a way that can do nothing except cause you to exhale and say, thank you, God. May the peace of Christ be with you all. Now, will you share that peace, signs of that peace, one with each other?
If you read the pamphlet, it says it's going to be read by Laura Peterson-Kilgore. Obviously, that's not me. She's on baby duty downstairs, graciously so. Let me meet you on the mountain, Lord, just once. You wouldn't have to burn a whole bush, just a few smoking branches. And I would surely be your Moses. Let me meet you on the water, Lord, just once. It You wouldn't have to be on the lake, just on a puddle after the annual rain, and I would surely be your Peter. Let me meet you on the road, Lord, just once. You wouldn't have to blind me on the expressway, just a few bright lights on the way to the chapel. Let me meet you, Lord, just once, anywhere, anytime. Just meeting you in the world is so hard sometimes. Must I always be your Thomas? Hear what the Spirit is saying.
I know you're not little children. That's all right. In some ways, we're all children. And I mean that. We are. Seems like only yesterday I was 10 years old. Like my wife tells me that I'm still 10 years old. Today, and actually for the next several weeks, we're going to talk about a thing called being grateful. What does that mean? What does it mean if you're grateful?
appreciate the things that you have. Anything else? Yes? Having gratitude? Right. But what is gratitude? What is appreciating? Now I know, because I know what's happening while you're trying to define it. It keeps looping back. Like gratitude is about being grateful, and grateful is about being thankful. But I'm going to keep asking, what does it really mean? What does it look like? What does it look like to be grateful? Yes? So if somebody does something good to you, you want to thank them, but not just with words. You want to do something good back to them. Okay? Good thoughts? More? What does it mean? What does it mean? Like, do you have things in your life that you appreciate? Are there things that you appreciate? Okay. Now, I'm not going to ask you what they are. I just want to know, how do you know that? How do you know that you appreciate them? Yes? Okay, so it's not liking them, it's that you have these certain things or people, right? And you know that without them, you'd be lost, right? You wouldn't necessarily even be able to go forward, right? There's like an appreciation like that. If you had a job down at the corner store and it was 4 miles away and you had a bicycle, right? You would appreciate your bicycle because it gets you from here to there faster. It makes a difference in your life, right? Jesus said that one of the keys, one of the secrets of life, whether you're a fully grown adult, whether you're a teenager, or whether you're a little child, is to find the way, pray to God to give you a way of seeing those things. Of really seeing them, of seeing the people, or the circumstances, or the things that you have, that without them, you might not even be able to be yourself. Your life would be not what it is. And so, one of the things that Jesus invited his friends to pray for and to try to put into practice was to always keeping in our minds the things that we appreciate, the things that we're grateful for. Because this is the funny thing about human beings. When there's something we really depend upon, and we depend upon it every day, we sometimes don't even think about it. Yeah, we take it for granted. We take it for granted. And we live as if we didn't know that our life depends upon that. Interesting, right? Yes? You don't really even, you're not aware of how much you depended upon it until you lose it. And then when you lose it, or it's taken away, you go, wait, I can't live without that. But somehow in the way we live, the more we lean on something, the more likely it is that we might not realize it's there. So in this month of stirring up faith, stir up faith, and then dealing with doubt and stirring up faith, what we're trying to acknowledge, what we're trying to learn about ourselves is to look around, to really look around and take an inventory. You know what that means? Take stock of the things that we really need in life that we already have. Somehow, that way of living today, Lord, help me to see what helps me to live. Help me to remind myself that
Air is given to me. Water, light. Start there. All those things that are so easy sometimes to just, well, move on to smaller things that we need. So today, Jesus tells a story of one person who came to a deep awareness of everything that was in his life that he was grateful for. And that's my prayer for you in this week, that you might experience some new eyes, look around and say, wow, I wasn't even aware that was there. Boy, am I grateful for that person or for that life. Okay? Thank you for coming up and sharing this time with me.
He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean? With the other 9? Where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except for this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." Hear what the Spirit is saying.
Thanks be to God.
There's some texts in Scripture that just really give the preacher permission to make everybody feel guilty. It's so tempting. The problem is, there's a phrase, I was going to talk with Regan about this. You've heard the phrase preaching to the choir, but I'm not really ever sure quite what that means. I know choir, you have to kind of be here. But the problem is, does it make sense to keep preaching to the choir who's always here? Or does it make sense to preach the sermon that almost just sets a trap for the preacher to say, well, what about all those 9 ungrateful people? But if I preach that sermon to you, what good is it? You're already here. You're among those who have returned to give thanks and praise to God. So let's just go home. Or we could perhaps think that maybe that is a tempting trap, that this scripture may not be for the others, that instead it might in fact be for us. Us who have come gathered seeking in some ways to give thanks to God, seeking to give God praise for what life is, but then to be nudged to something fuller. I've gone through the inventory of my life stories, some 35 years of preaching, and then sometimes I reach all the way back into my childhood for my stories, and I have a catalog of these stories in my mind. And every time I get to this text, I can't help but think of a couple that keep coming up. And so if you've heard this story before, I'm sorry, but it's so powerful in my own life. When I first started in preaching in the Presbyterian church, I was at the Ewing Presbyterian church. It was a large church. And in my work there, I was the youth pastor. But part of the context of that church was it was full, literally full of people in recovery from addiction. There were, I think, 5 AA groups that met. There were 2 NA groups. There were Al-Anon groups all over the place. Now, not many people who came to those groups crossed over and came to the church. Not many of them did. Because while they had found a community of welcome and non-judgmentalism that had been important to keeping their sobriety, they didn't always find that in the church. I'm just going to leave that right where it is. But there was this one young man who, after I came there, not too long after I was there, he came right to me. He was a big guy. He was a redhead and ruddy, and he was big. And he came to me and he said, Pastor Lou, I just have this feeling that God is calling me to get involved in working with the young people in the church. And I know that you're working with young people, and I wondered if you trust me enough to allow me to become a partner with you in this ministry to young people. And I said, well, I need to know a little bit about you. Who are you and what's motivating you? Because sometimes people want to get involved in doing youth ministry because they like to boss teenagers around. I'm just going to leave that right where it is. So he said, I grew up here in this township. I've gone high school, elementary school. I've been a part of this. And he said, I don't know, sometime in my late elementary school years and the beginning of my high school years, I discovered alcohol. And alcohol became my best friend. And it got me through everything. It got me through all the struggles of the divorce of my parents. It got me through all the heartache that had come to me in my life. And it got me through the friends that were teasing me and taught me how to have a hard center inside of me. And he said, I really began to lean on alcohol. There was no one I could trust like alcohol to get me through. And he said, so I got out of high school, I got a menial task job that didn't demand too much of my attention, because most of my attention was captivated by my friend, and I was happy to give it to him. Then he said, it just kept getting more and more, this dependency on alcohol, this need to have my friend so woven into my life. And he said, there came a point in my life where my friend was really killing me. And in front of the Ewing Presbyterian Church, there was a 90-degree turn on a county road. It literally was a 90-degree turn. It wasn't a stop. If you didn't know that turn was coming up and you're driving down that road at night, you'd have one of those experiences where you're like, whoa! You make your way around, and then as you made your way around the bend, there was the Presbyterian Church, right there. So one night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, my friend was coming down that road with his friend. He was completely inebriated. 2 o'clock in the morning, he lived there all his life, and he forgot that bend was there. He hit that bend at about 60 miles an hour. He went through the guardrail. And on the other side of the guardrail, just in front of the Presbyterian Church, there was a fire hydrant. He busted the guardrail off and busted off the fire hydrant. Now, you've seen this in the movies, but this actually happened to him. So his car went far enough to sit right under the arch of the water that was coming up out of the fire hydrant where it was broken off, and it was actually making a sky-to-earth fountain, and it was coming down on his car. And he said, unhurt by the accident, he was sitting in the car, and he was trapped by this flood of water that was washing down over him. And so he decided he was going to climb out through the windshield where it was broken, and he did. He climbed out through the windshield, and as he was sliding across the front of his car, he looked up, and there was a full vision of the Presbyterian Church. And he said, I decided that God had, in a moment, baptized me and given me membership in the church in one moment. And he said, I have lived into that experience, because he said then the next day, after he'd gotten out of all the tanglement of the courts and everything, he went to an AA group in that building he saw in the vision in front of him. And he didn't just stop with AA. He didn't just stop with steps 1, 2, and 3. He went beyond in his recovery. He went on to discover not just what he was missing from this addiction that he had, but he went on to discover, the full 12 steps don't stop with just sobriety. The full 12 steps go on to explain the height and the depth of human living that are lost because of addiction. And they invite you into community and into finding life to live beyond the addiction. And to discover the life that you thought you were getting by this friend. He told me this whole story sitting there in my office, and I said, you qualify. You qualify. I want your story to be part of our story as adults together seeking to uncover faith. Do not, preacher, do not enter into judgmentalism of the 9 people who went off. They were lepers. They had lived in a lepers colony. Don't judge the times back then. We do the same thing. When you have an infectious disease, you have to be isolated. You have to be. They were isolated. They were not allowed to return home. They were not allowed to join in the practices of their church. So they lived a sense of being isolated not only from the people they loved, but they had this sense of alienation from God. And there were 10 of them. And they formed this little community, evidently, in a strange location. I don't have time to go into all of the details of the history that are packed in this. But this in-between land, between Samaria and Galilee, this was a no person's land. No one would go there because there were hatreds that were built up between them, like there are between Turkey and Syria, just like you can see unfolding in the world today, like there are between the Israelis and the Palestinians, like there in a much more graphic way used to be between the Irish and the Catholics. This was that land, and Luke says it was in that land, in that soil, that there were these 10 people who managed to find a community. And you know, I don't know if you know this, but when you're sick and when you're really beaten down, all the normal prejudices that you would have, they go away. You might hate African American people, but if you get in the hospital, your roommate in the hospital is an African American person, and you spend 2 weeks with the same disease, you know what happens? You make a friend. That's what had happened to these 10. In fact, one of the commentators points out that the number 10 was exactly the number that their scripture said you needed to form a new synagogue. You had to have 10 to form a new community seeking God. You had to have 10, and there were 10. And what's interesting is that you don't get it revealed until the end, but here in no man's land, where people had practiced hate and resentment and all kinds of practices that were being lived out as literally, physically warring against each other, these 10 lived on the borderline. And they had formed a community of support. I had one friend, I think she was evangelical Lutheran, who said she was a missionary. You know that old phrase, a missionary? A missionary is someone that the church, especially here in the United States, and forgive me for this, but in the practice of things, this is really how it happened a lot. If there was someone who really wanted to be in ministry and in preaching and engaging, and the church wasn't too sure they wanted them here, they sent them there. But what's interesting is that the church here, especially in the United States, has spent a lot of time dividing itself up. You know, the Anabaptists and the Mennonites and the Presbyterians and things that you and I, if we're honest together today, you do not know. When you drive down the street and you go past various churches, you have no idea what were the issues that separated those people. But here in the United States, it made a difference. It made a difference. But my friend had come back from the mission field, and what she said is, she goes, the big joke on the mission field to the domestic church in the United States is, as soon as we leave the United States, you know what we do? We all work together. And then she went, don't tell anybody. Don't tell the Presbyterians that we work side by side with the Baptists. Especially, don't tell them. Because if they knew, they would cut off our money. Because here, we, like those two countries on either side of this no man's land between Samaria and Galilee, when we have the luxury, we can divide ourselves into groups by the color of our skin, or by the language we speak, or the countries we give allegiance to. We can divide ourselves into all kinds of separate groups. But you know, once you have leprosy, none of that matters. Some of you know, some of you have fought in varieties of leprosy that confound our lives today, and you've been in those communities. Recovery from cancer, women with breast cancer. What a powerful combination and combining of creation of groups for strength. And you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in those settings what your race is. It doesn't matter what your country of origin is, because you've been given the power that comes from uniting together in a common cause. Don't think too badly of these 9. Jesus comes into the no man's land, which is a sermon all by itself. Walking into the no man's land between the Samaritans and the Galileans, he hears the cry. One voice. It's very interesting in the literature. 10 people, and they cry with one voice. There's a whole sermon right there. And they cry out to Jesus, and he hears them. And he doesn't say, I'm going to heal you. What he says to them is, Go to your separate priests. Go to your priests, because he looks at them, and I don't know how he knew. Maybe because of how they dressed, or because of how they spoke. Maybe it was because of their skin color, I don't know. But he knew this was a community created by leprosy, and he knew that if they went, he couldn't say, go to your one church. He said, go to your priests and show yourself to them. Which was what a person had to do if they believed they were healed of leprosy. And the priest would then examine them like a doctor would examine you. The priest stepped into these double worlds, and when you showed yourself to the priest would certify that your skin was clean and you appeared to be healed. And so he said, go and show yourselves to the priests. And they went to their various priests. And the verb forms are very tricky, because it's this phrase in the King James, and it came to pass. And it came to pass that while they were walking, they were healed. And you've got to assume that the 9 did exactly what Jesus told them to do. They went to their priests and they showed their priests in miracle and astonishment and said, look, I think I'm healed. And the priest would have said, I think you are too. And then they returned to their lives. I'm sure they raced home to their wives or to their kids or back to their jobs to say, look at me, I was dead and I'm alive. They returned to their lives. You cannot, please do not judge the 9. It's not fair. Instead, what we want to do today is to look a little more deeply into the 1. Because this 1 didn't just get healing. This 1 didn't just get better. This 1 got what every single one of us as a human being needs, what we need every day of our lives. This 1 actually disobeyed Jesus. He disobeyed him. He did not go to his priest. He didn't, but as he was walking along to his priest, he discovered that he was clean, and something broke in his heart and in his life, and he saw completely for the first time what he never had seen before. He returns to Jesus and falls on his face, and listen carefully, he does not thank Jesus. He does not. What pours forth from him is what pours forth from every human being when you are released from the things that separate you from complete trust in God. He falls on his face in front of Jesus and he cries out a cry of complete and utter trust to God. He thanks God, but he thanks God not just for his healing. He thanks God for his life. He thanks God for the things he's never seen before. He thanks God for the ground he walks on. He thanks God for the air he breathes. This man has not just been healed. Now stay with me. Don't get all religious on me. Luke says he got saved. Saved. Sozo is the word. But the word sozo was not religious then. It wasn't something that a preacher would preach. You must be saved. The savedness, the sozo of life, was that whatever happened in the Garden of Eden, whatever that was that took place when Eve and Adam could not trust, when they could not trust, that is the reality of human beings. They could not trust. They did not see the garden. They did not understand the ground on which they walked on. They could not understand the sense in the place where they were. They could not trust in God, even though they were completely trusting in God already. And so sin, the word sin, don't get religious on me now, is anything that separates you from your awareness of your complete and total dependence on God. Anything that separates you from your awareness of your complete and total dependence on God. I fully believe that when my friend rode through the guardrail, drunk as he was, climbed out over the hood of his car and was baptized, what he discovered in that moment, even though, yes, it did lead to sobriety, it led to recovery, but he already was saved in that moment. Because what was awakening in front of him as a 19-year-old young man was something he never, ever had a capacity to understand. He believed, he put his trust in the fact that God was with him. That God was claiming him. That God was walking with him through life. Don't be too hard on the other 9. They just did what every one of us does all the time. They just were happy. They were sick. Now they were healed. But they didn't get from the moment all that they could get. They didn't receive the blessing that could have come, the blessing that would have come from having been dead and now alive, to move out into life alive, fully alive. Fully alive. Alive to all the possibilities that were there. Now I have an idea that after this one returned and fell on his face and thanked God, I have an idea that then got up. Jesus said, "Go on your way." That he then obeyed Jesus and went and showed the priest. Something deep and profound, something beyond description of words had happened in his life. Luke, in his writing, is making a case to you and me. He's telling the story of Jesus, but he is writing to us, and he is inviting us to enter into a life guided by God's love. He's making a case for indiscriminate love, for love that binds us together without distinction of race, country, language, culture. Luke is making the case. But then he makes a harder case. He believes that our saved, fully saved lives are when we trust God when good things happen. We trust God when good things happen. That we are open to being relieved of the things that destroy our trust when good things happen. You know, money is one of those things. Money is one of those things that when you have it, it's a good thing, but it destroys your trust in God. Sometimes family can be that too, because it provides a sense of security and strength. And when you have it, it can be an obstacle to your salvation. There are a million things that are good things that can lead to you having a very difficult time actually trusting in God. And so what's amazing about this one human being, this 1 in 10, was that he found a way to trust God when good things happened. And as a result, he found freedom. Not just from leprosy, not just from cancer, not just from the things that attack us in our lives, but he found freedom above those things. Praise the Lord. He quotes pieces of this song. I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart. Great are your works, O Lord. You are full of grace. You are full of mercy. You provide food for those of us who stand in awe of you, and you are ever mindful of your promise to be with us. May God strengthen us, certainly, in faith in times of difficulty and trial. And when necessary, I'm going to pray God will knock a few fire hydrants off and wash the dust and dirt out of your eyes. But more than that, I will pray that God will move you and me beyond those things that we fear and that are hurtful, to also to release us from the good things, that we might completely trust God in all things. Amen. So then what are we to say? What is it that Jesus is reaching into our lives? Where have your hearts and minds gone? What are the obstacles to faith? Perhaps you are one struggling with a kind of leprosy, with a disease, or with a heartbreaking energy draining, hope destroying kind of experience. Or perhaps you here, gathered in this unique community that Christ has created, are one who struggles with a particular deadening of success, of things going okay. The Spirit of God moves into our life, challenges us. It calls upon us even as we call upon the Spirit of God. It stirs us up to faith, which can lead us to begin begin to list our doubts, and then that moves us into the prayer. Those 10 cried out with one voice to a master who heard them. He heard them deeply. He responded and called them to life, to health, to healing, and to hope. Where are your life-destroying challenges today? Calling out to Jesus in prayer. Where are the world-destroying challenges today? Where do they come from? Let's sing. Oh, Lord, hear my prayer. Oh, Lord, hear my prayer. When I call, answer me. Oh, Lord, hear my prayer. Oh, Lord, hear my prayer. Come and listen to me. Lord, we cry out to you today from a no man's land, from a place where boundaries and barriers don't make sense anymore. We cry out to you, and our voices join with the people of Syria, joined with the people of Israel and Palestine, joined with the people on the whole continent of Africa, joined with the people of South America and Central America. Our voices are joined together. We are created as a community in need of a new vision from you. We need to be healed, O God, at the center of our lives. We need healing from greed, from hatred, from the unwillingness to hear each other. Create of us a community like those 10. And let some among us, O Lord, receive the full power of your saving grace to lead us on in the way of your complete freeing of us. We pray for the community of the whole earth and for the creation and for our part in this tender balance that you have created. Help us to live, O God, recognizing and keeping that which keeps us alive. You are the Lord of our life. You are the Lord of every circumstance. You're the Lord of our diseases, and you're the Lord of our friends' diseases. You are the Lord of our enemies' diseases. You are the Lord of the earth. You are the giver of life and hope. And we cry out to you, O Lord, hear our prayer. Hear us now like never before. Lord, hear my prayer. Oh, Lord, hear my prayer. When I call, answer me. Oh, Lord, hear my prayer. Oh, Lord, hear my prayer. Come and listen to me. For mothers and fathers, for sisters and brothers, for neighbors, for friends. Release us, O God, from everything that keeps us from bearing witness to our love for them and your love for all of them. Heal us, O God, in the center of who we are, that as we may need to live into the power of disease, that life itself will not be taken from us, and that we will know our life completely with you. As life comes to its fulfillment, that we will know that this is our song, this is our way to live in the world, in gratitude and in thankfulness, in living our life, praying our prayers, but singing our songs of faith to you. The Lord is my song. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Last Sunday, in this lead up into the time of receiving an offering in gratitude to God, we told the story about the peacemaking offering. Peace and Global Witness offering, which you responded to, and you responded in a beautiful way. It's not too late to grab one of those envelopes in the back if you didn't get to be a part of it. But in a way that took my breath away, I have to give thanks to God for the way we all got moved a little bit by a story that I told you about learning about two individuals in the New City Kids who were worried about where they were going to get their money to fill out their college applications. And I told that story. We didn't work it through the missions committee or go through any of the structured organization. We just kind of threw it out there as, there may be, I don't know, maybe there's somebody out there with $20 they'd like to throw in the direction of that, and we could take it down and give it to these kids. Okay, here's the report, friends. $1,675. I called the director and said, I don't even know what to say. Our great and monstrous giving support to New City Kids has been, with the missions committee, has been a gift of $1,000. And they are happy to get it, and they'll get it again. But when I called the director and told him that this congregation, there were less people there than there are here today, that this congregation managed within 2 days to raise $1,675. He was silent on the end of the phone, and I was crying on this end. Because I know what it will mean. I know firsthand what it will mean to those young people to feel the power and the strength of a community that hears their needs and responds to it. When we do that, we know that we believe in God who hears our needs and responds as well. So I just want to say thank you on their behalf. And if you're here, November, what date is it in November? I think it's the second week. Yeah. I think it's the second week in November. They are coming here, and they will be here with their band and with their stories, and they will come. That Sunday is New City Kids Sunday at High Mountain Presbyterian Church. And I want to encourage you, not only come yourself, but bring other people with you. The witness, the power, and the strength of these young people and what's happening in their lives is not just good for them, but it's inspiring to us. Let us worship God with our morning offerings. Oh, I do have one other announcement I want to share with you. One of our members, Ziggy, is an artist, as you may know, and she has had showings here today. If you have time from 2 to 5, she is going to host a Meet the Artist at Clearview Winery in Warwick. Her photography will be on display there. It'll be every weekend in October, but if you'd like to go and have a time of personal interaction with her, you can see Mike Holt. He knows more of the directions and the details, or you can see Ziggy herself. She's also here. So I just wanted to let you know that's today from 2 to 5. Let us worship God and thank God for the life of a community that in faith encourages us to have faith. enough fire hydrants in your way as you live this week. And they get busted off by our blindness and our worry and our concern and our defensiveness. And then when the top is knocked off of them, the water of God's grace and love comes washing down on you and on me and revives us again to a life lived in faith with God in all circumstances. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the face of God shine upon you and shower upon you. May God be kind and gracious unto you and to all those that you know and love. And may God's grace and blessing fall from the heavens on all those that we don't know and all those that we have difficulty in loving. Especially, O God, to those who are convinced that no one loves them at all. May God teach us once again, from the center of who we are, what it means to be kind and full of grace in the world today. Amen.
I'm doing great. How are you? At my age, I guess I got down to see them last week.
We all died.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
so nice.
Let's just say,
Two now.
it's better than
Like
that.
Stephen.
I can still picture
Yeah,
him.
we don't want the reverse.
You were dropping.
And remember when you added treasure, wasn't that his name?
Yeah,
Mom, I just put my hand shorter. I just
He doesn't trust you.
yeah. Build a wall.
Build a wall. He was like crazy getting stuff for Stephen. Because he was like, oh, I'm like, oh, yes.
You know what I remember?
very issue because
Remember what?
I said, do you know what I remember?
you don't believe there.
Coming to church choir, you still had a wet head.
Always. Always. That was always how it would be. Yep. Because I was lucky, I work nights, so it was hard. You know, I come home, I take a shower, and I take.
But you were clean, we all knew.
That's it. I came fresh as a daisy. But now you see, I don't have children anymore. My hair is dry. Yeah, I always had a wet head. You're absolutely right. Had a wet head going to work too.
Oh, dear.
Gene, did you say hello to Patty?
Hi guys.
Bye, Kathy.
Patty, are you?
Yeah.
How are you? Good seeing you.
Hey, Nate, how you doing?
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Your family's well?
Believe so.
Okay.
As of yesterday. They were fine.
to you?
Very busy. I mean, I rarely see Lizzie anymore. She's working and busy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Laura's the same way. But they're all good. Thank you.
My children, when the boys get together, they say, oh, remember the day that we were here long before that? You know, don't hold them. Oh, we never told you long before. I don't want to. Oh, that's just fresh. That's too bad.
Talk when it's happening.
Next week. Day off. Oh, David, my pictures? Mark Ballas.
Oh my God.
Yeah. 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 Very attentive. Very attentive. Thank you.
I got the prayers. Yeah, but I didn't get the announcement.
And Sundays.
Yeah. You got it. I'll do it in there. All right? Walk right into it.
How are the boys? Good boys.
much for inviting me. Nice, really nice. I'm having a party and you can't come.
Party, not that you know.
No, I have an invite. I'm going to be invited
What did you do?
Moving on. Moving on to the next. So we're just moving on. I work at my day job and that's what I'm doing right now. That shows up each week. So doing marketing for them is like from now to when it opens is a super crazy time. And then I run out of advertising money and then these are good. So like once it actually opens, then it's chill. But get lessons. Sort of how I feel about everything in my life at all times. Have to get lessons.
Maybe I'll do that next time. Because I emailed her. I emailed her like on, like at the end of the month, and then I knew that I was going to have two different apartments that needed to be paid.
If you copy me, then I'll know to look for it when I come.
Okay.
Just gotta get the key.
Well, so the one time that I think, oh, the copier's working great, I can just make a copy of my tribute and then I'll sing it, it'll be so great. And it locked up, and so like, I only copied 2 sheets, like I just wanted to see if it would work. Because I hate that sheet, I don't think it's that hate it.
That feels that way, yeah.
And both papers got stuck in the sheet, the ones coming out. And so then and I got both the papers out, but it says it's still jammed. And so then I went into there, and that was a whole other crazy nightmare. I'll be right back.
How much?
Huh? 150.
We've got.
Oh, that's grab the key.
What was the future do last month? Yes, I'm gonna get rid of my day job, not paying it, so last, I don't do that. So now I'm just.
Thanks for writing it down.
She works full time, but as a part-time worker.
It was beautiful. Really supportive.
Well, I'll make some copies of all the ensemble pieces. Is there anybody else that needs stuff?
I don't think so. I think everybody had their stuff last week. Nobody was like, I don't have this.
Well, Robbie wasn't here, so he might need it. And the new kid, did you give
I
it to
gave
him?
him some, yeah.
Okay, all right. I have a couple that I picked up along the way. in my
Okay,
binder.
all right.
Those of you reassuring for the stuff that needs to hear.
I think we're gonna use binders for the first one, for the medley and for Double Trouble, but for the Frumacera, I'd like that to be off.
Okay.
It's easy enough.
All right.
There's snacks and sometimes there's really good snacks, and then sometimes like cheese crackers. I have to teach at 12:30, and then just bring them to the library, and there for like 4 hours. And then we have a rehearsal here for music of the night. And then it'll be nighttime. I'll go home and cry. I know you have a busy week.